AngelHack, and I'm really happy that you're here with us today. So previously, we had a part 1 session to mobile-first progressive web dApp, and if you have not watched it, you can catch it on AngelHack's YouTube channel. So we have so much more to share on this topic, so here's a part 2 of it. Before we dive into it, let me share with you who our speakers are today and quickly run through some of the hackathon details for the newer folks who are hearing about this hackathon for the first time. So we have Nestor and Joe from Developer Relations at Celo. So if you have watched part 1, you probably would know Joe. So Nestor is our new speaker for this series. Yeah. Okay, so what is this hackathon all about? Let's bring up the tracks. Our first challenge statement track is on stablecoins with dApp solutions. So this challenge focuses on building stablecoin related financial solutions on Celo, with a focus on expanding the use of Celo dollar to emerging markets with high rates of inflation, or exploring payment tools and middleware. So our second track revolves around stablecoins and DAOs. As it suggests, this challenge surrounds projects that integrate stablecoins with DAOs, including credit-based finance, crowdsourced platforms, venture DAO, and decentralized charities. So here are some of the project ideas that can get you started. So the last track will be stablecoins with DeFi mobile solutions. It concerns uniting stablecoins with DeFi mobile solutions in order to integrate a Web3 component into DeFi. And then we have more project ideas to get you started. Okay. So what's the catch to this hackathon? What can you look forward to? Well, we have dedicated prizes for each of the 3 challenge statements. So for each track, there will be a challenge winner walking away with 50,000 CUSD, with a hackathon swag box and a listing opportunity on Huobi. The 3 runner-ups will also be walking away with 15,000 CUSD. We will also award the most innovative project with 5,000 CUSD. So the prizes do not stop there. There is a climate change bonus in store, and for every team that has integrated a form of climate change or carbon credit to the submission, the winners will actually have an added 5,000 CUSD on top of any of the mentioned prizes earlier. So this means that you can essentially win an additional 5,000 CUSD above what you're winning. And even if you are not prize winners from the challenge statements, if you have a submission that is really strong in climate change or integrating carbon credit, you can potentially walk away with 5,000 CUSD. Of course, not missing out on the overall grand prize. The grand prize winner will be awarded 100,000 CUSD with a lovely hackathon swag box and a great listing opportunity on Huobi. So lots of opportunities to win something. We can't wait to see your submissions. So to sum up, 500,000 CUSD worth of prizes, 4 weeks of hackathon, and 16 prizes up for grabs. So what's upcoming? Well, we are starting mentor office hours really soon, and this will go on till the end of next week. I hope all of you have booked your mentors because their slots are on a first come, first served basis. And they're pretty busy, so get booking. So for all of those who are new and want to get a piece of the pie, how can you get started? So first of all, register for the hackathon, join the community, learn together, get access to our resources, Celo's resources, and get opportunities to share your ideas with our amazing mentors. So how can you reach out to the community? Join the Celo Discord server to receive the latest updates and initiate conversations with fellow developers who are like you, who are looking to build something incredible. Don't miss a single event and save our hackathon calendar available on our participants guide. Start going through the resources that we have curated for you, and we are super excited to see what you'll be building. All right, so let's get started with what this session is really about. Please join me in welcoming Joe and Nestor from Developer Relations at Celo. So Joe and Nestor, please take the stage.
All right, thank you. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Joe from Developer Relations. Just coming in today to help teach you about some tools to build on Celo and give you some information that you could use to help get started. It's in some sense part 2 of what happened last week, where Brandy went through all the PWA experiments. She shared her GitHub repo, and it was really from like the ground level up, like what's the core basics and fundamentals you need to know to go ahead and build a progressive web app. What I'm going to focus on today is starting with like the simplest way to get started, and then slowly work back into a local environment where you'll be developing and using a progressive web app. And then from there, we'll pass it over to Nestor, who's going to show you a bit more about how to do Celo transactions using a couple different popular tools. So I'm going to share my screen quick. And Nestor, if you don't mind, I don't want to introduce you. Let you introduce yourself, and I'll be sharing my screen in 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. Well, I'm Nestor Bonilla, also part of the developer team. And as Joe will mention it, I'm going to be sharing about transactions. We are going to dissect transactions. We're going to use very different libraries, use it in the ecosystem, Ether.js. We're going to use the Celo kit also. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Pass to you, Joe.
All right. And it's showing up weird on my screen, but are you seeing my presentation sharing right now?
Yes.
All right. Got it. Cool. So I'll be jumping back and forth pretty quick through this presentation, so I'm not going to worry about full screening it. It's just a help guide, but we're going to be doing a lot of just kind of hands-on type stuff that hopefully you can follow along with. But I guess we got through this, but it's Joe and Nestor. A couple things, if you do want to look them up real quick, follow Celo at Celo.org, Celo devs, come join us on Discord. And then we got at Nyzio and at OXNestor. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're sharing a lot of stuff each day that can help get you more tools even after this session. So went over this also a bit. I'm going to start now with just how to get started building on Celo. So where I like to start is just where are the resources in general? Where can you refer back to after this talk if you want to start building? And the three main ones that I like is the documentation, docs.celo.org. On Medium, we have a blog for Celo developers where I write a bunch, and if anybody from the community wants to go ahead and write more blogs and tutorials, they could submit it to that blog, and then we'll get you published on there too, so we can share that with the community. And then the last one I made is call it the Celo Developer Guide, where no matter how organized we try to make it or how clear we try to write it, it's like a decentralized ecosystem, stuff coming from everywhere. So I made one resource that for me was just what's the best path that I could think of, and really just links to all the important information. So this one is what I use the most right now, and it links to the blogs and the docs a ton. If you want to find that, I'll be talking through it a lot. So I have it pinned to the top of my Twitter, and what that'll take you to is this guide here. Just a quick intro to what's in here is you'll have a launch pad of all the quick links I use when getting started developing, an introduction section where if you're not familiar with Celo, you can learn the basics, popular blogs and resources to help you get started. Take a look at our dApps, our block explorers, wallets, and reference materials for things like our SDKs. Goes on for a while, so won't go through absolutely everything, but the rest of the details we are going to touch on today is just building on Celo. So getting your environment set up, creating a dApp, and using tools like Remix, Truffle, Hardhat, and Dap Starter. You can extend your toolkit, real world use cases that you might want to look at, and everything related to them, and then things you can do to join the community. So right past that is that launchpad I was talking about. So in there is Celo, link to the home, docs, our faucet, explorer, forums, other things. If you're not familiar or you're new to Web3, you might not be too familiar with Ethereum tooling, but one thing that's cool about Celo is anything you can use on Ethereum, you can use on Celo. So a lot of what we're demoing today will show you that. And important links here are getting to the Ethereum site, learning about Solidity, Open Zeppelin, JavaScript, and it just goes on. So I'll just get back to the presentation now. And all of that said, this is one picture I wanted to show before getting started. And I guess I can't present this one. Basically, to me, when I'm developing, it's really hard to know, like, how are all the tools getting connected? What should I focus on if I'm doing certain things? What to ignore? And how does it all look visually? And this is still kind of complicated, but if you can focus on one section at a time, basically what you're trying to do is make mobile dApps. And the way that's going to work is someone will install MetaMask, and on Celo, they can also install Valora. This is a popular Ethereum wallet, and this is a popular Celo wallet. There's ways to sync them both, so you've got the same account on each if you want. And given that wallet, people are then going to interact with the dApp that you've created. Doesn't matter what it is, can be anything that you're submitting for the hackathon or build later on, but it'll probably integrate with one of these two wallets. From there, Valora also integrates with a ton of dApps. You can download it and use the dApp Explorer to see them. but dApps like Impact Market, Moolah Market, Mobius, Ubiswap, and NomSpace are a couple of those that you'll find. They've all got their own thing going on. And they're a great resource for if you do want to integrate with certain dApps. This is a great indicator that they're popular in the Celo network and would be worth integrating with. To make these dApps, you're going to want to set up your local environment or your environment on your desktop. And that could either be a local environment or a browser environment. Where we're going to start today, after a quick overview of getting started with MetaMask, is in a browser, because it's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier, and it takes a lot of the headache away from getting started. And the best tool for that I like is called Remix. That's where you'll use to deploy your smart contracts. You can go ahead and look at them in the Block Explorer, integrate with MetaMask, and use your Chrome browser to do all of that. Past that, if you want to set up a local environment, you can use any IDE you want, but I like VS Code. You use Solidity to make your smart contracts. Truffle and Hardhat are environments for deploying your smart contracts and helping you manage that. You don't have to use both. You pick one or the other. And I have blogs and tutorials that I can link you to that you also see in the developer guide that can help you step through everything it takes to get up and running with those, even past this session. And finally, I like React. Some of the tools we have use React, but you definitely don't have to use React to get started with Celo. We just pick that as what a lot of our tooling integrates with. But if you have a different framework in mind, you can get set up with that too. Aside from that, there's the Celo platform itself where all the data is logged. And to connect this dApp to the Celo platform, you're going to use different Celo SDKs and Web3 libraries. And that's what Nestor is going to talk a bit more about towards the second half of the session. So that said, I hope it gives you a good visual of where we're headed. And you don't necessarily need to install Valora for this session, but if you'd like to go ahead and do it, you can just go to valoraapp.com. It's a really cool way to just get started, see all the different dApps that I was talking about. And we're not going to actually use it too much, so I can skip that. One thing, if you are using Valora, that I like is then you can just jump straight into the Celo Block Explorer when you're sending transactions to your friends and start exploring it visually before you get into the code to see what does it mean to be a block? What does it mean to be a transaction? When you get a little more into it, what is an ABI? What does the smart contract code look like? But you can explore all that through Block Scout. And what we will do today is go ahead and maybe you haven't MetaMask installed already, maybe not, but I'll just show you quick where to install it and then how to hook it up to Celo. Once you do that, you can go ahead, you'll see Celo, the Alpha Horus testnet. In this case, is a test network we'll develop on, then you'll have some Celo that you can use to deploy your smart contracts. That would be using this. I'm going to skip through some of it and just kind of get to the meat of it, I guess. So deploying on Remix was the simplest tool that I was talking about that you can go ahead and do from your browser. I'll start with the guide. So if you're using it, you know where to click around, but I have it linked right here. This will take you to the website. You can go ahead and start coding online. And it gives you everything you need to go ahead and deploy a smart contract. Looks like I lost a panel over here. One sec. There's a couple different settings and stuff we'll look at over here. And here is more of like an IDE where you've got different contracts, tests, and scripts you write. But what's cool about it is right away, you've already got a smart contract, in this case, a storage one. And what it does is it stores and retrieves a number. You set the number here, here's where it's storing it, and here's where it's retrieving it. And right away, you can just go down, compile the smart contract, and then deploy it. And it gives you a front end. None of this is on Celo yet, but it's just nice to know that without having like coded anything, you can go ahead, set numbers, retrieve numbers, and all this is being logged on like a local blockchain that they've got set up for you. Well, not a local blockchain, but a JavaScript virtual machine blockchain. If you do want to get it on Celo, what you'll do is go to your environment and select injected Web3. And this is the case if you want to deploy even on Ethereum or other blockchains. But what it's doing is it's reading your injected Web3 provider, which is MetaMask. It's looking to see what you're connected to. And in this case, I'm connected to Celo Alpha Horus testnet. And that is logged here. That just happens to be the network number of Alpha Horus. And now when we redeploy this same contract, It's going to open up MetaMask. You have to pay for the transaction to deploy it onto the network. You can go ahead and confirm it. And now the same contract where we were storing and retrieving numbers, you can interact with it. And each new number that you log is now going to be confirmed on the blockchain. And that's a bit different from what was happening before because you're actually on Celo already. Another thing that lets you do is everything, you can go back to our block explorer, change it to the AlphaHorace testnet, and this contract is now available to read, write, check out all the transactions, and anything else you might want to do directly from the block explorer. One thing I'll show you here, because it's quick, is a cool thing about blockchain smart contracts is you can read and write and verify everyone else's contracts, but it doesn't happen automatically. Like if you go to code, you'll see here, it's just, well, it shouldn't be, it's here already. But if it wasn't, I'm not actually sure why that happened. You can go ahead, get this plugin called the Sourceify plugin. And then what you would do is you go ahead and verify your contract. And that's what allows it to show everyone what's going on Block Scout. Sorry, I was surprised by that. Kind of lost my train of thought there. But so that said, you might be wondering, well, how did you get it on MetaMask in the first place? And what that is when you're on MetaMask, you have all these accounts. By default, you have Ethereum mainnet, the Robson test network, and all this is related to different networks that aren't Celo. But in this case, I have the Celo AlphaHorace testnet. And the way you do that is if you want to add any account or new network, you go to the settings, select the network settings, add a network. And once you're here, you're going to need a network name, a new RPC URL, chain ID, currency symbol, and block explorer URL. What I did in this developer guide is give you all that information. So if you want to add the testnet, here's all that same info. You would just copy it, go over, paste it over. And once it's all filled in, which for me, it won't work because I've already done all this. Once you do it for yourself, you save it, and now you'll have the network available for you. So with that said, hopefully that started clicking. It takes a little bit of setup. Once you get used to it, it's really quick. And then you could just go ahead and pick another smart contract. Say you want to check out this owner smart contract, see what it does a bit. In this case, this is all written by Solidity. So real quick, if you aren't that familiar with Solidity, you could go back to this Launchpad, check out the Solidity documentation and learn to write the contracts a little better or figure out what's going on. But once you're comfortable with the smart contract you have, you go back again, compile the smart contract. It's compiled, click one more down again, and go ahead and deploy the next smart contract. You'll verify it and see all the ways you can interact with it the same way you had before. So after that, one thing you might want to do is get even a little more complicated smart contract. At some point, you're like, hey, okay, I know the basics. These are some template smart contracts, but I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I want to make something a little more complex for myself. What I like to use is this thing called the Contracts Wizard. And just to give you a sense of how to get there, again, it's from this developer guide. And what this gives you is a way to just sort of click on different functions that you want a smart contract to have, and it'll create them for you. What opens up one is it's a set of libraries you can use to go ahead and create smart contracts. They tell you everything you need about what all of this means, whether it's ERC20, 721, 1155, or anything else. You can find this in their documentation. And what I like about it is say, hey, I want to make a token, make a Joe token. Here's a symbol. I want to make 1,000 of them, and I want to be able to mint, burn, pause, or whatever else you click, and it's populating it for you right away. So you still don't actually have to write custom code quite yet, and it gives you a good chance to experiment with stuff. Since Remix is so popular, they have it integrated right in here for you. And when you open that up, you'll see it's Joe token. Like I said, I want 1,000 of them and all the other functions that I asked it to have. And once again, you can go ahead, compile the contract. Actually, oh yeah, compile the contract and then select. There's a couple contracts in this case because, as you can see, it's importing from a bunch of different contracts to make this happen. So all of these contracts are available. But what you'll want to do is deploy the one with your name on it or whatever you had asked to create it. And it'll go ahead and give you a chance to interact with it directly from the browser, just like you had before. You can say, who's the owner of it? It's my account address. What's the symbol? It's Joe. The total supply, it's 1,000, but the decimals are a little different. It's actually showing a larger number because it's using, I guess, Gwei instead of Ether. But last thing there is we actually deployed it in that local browser. So again, if you wanted to take this whole thing, deploy it on Celo, switch back to injected Web3, it'll read your account. You can check that you're on the right one. OXD2, here it says OXD2, and you're connected. So go ahead and deploy it. Confirm the transaction. And there is information, I guess I didn't show you down here. A lot of the information that's being logged on the blockchain, if you want to explore a little better, you can bring this up and you're starting to get a sense for what it'll look like in your terminal. But past that, you can go back to the block explorer, check this out. Everything's there, just like you had looked at before. So go afterwards. And we've got our contract. It's the Joe token. So you can do that. Hopefully it's a quick way to help you get started. And I'm taking a little longer than I thought I would, so I'll jump into the next thing. At some point, you do want to create your local environment. And you can do that using something named Truffle or Hardhat if you want to use frameworks that are available. I'm going to start with Truffle, and just to give you a sense of where this was in the picture, it was this one over here. So we're going to set up a local environment now with VS Code using a Solidity contract that makes use of Truffle. And this will all do the same thing, just with a little more setup, but you get more power with it. You can do, I don't know, stuff with Truffle that you can't do with Remix. And back in my, let's see, I'm going to start Xing some stuff out real quick. Back in my guide, set it up so you've got Truffle right here. And there is a blog I made that shows you all of these steps like one at a time. So if it's not making too much sense, you can see like what exactly do all these commands mean? Why are they doing them? But at the same time, once you get the hang of it, it can be kind of hard to read through everything. So I made like just a quick version that you can go ahead and run through. And I'll do that now. Desktop. In this case, I have some of the prerequisites already, but you'll need Node version 12 to work with Celo. And then even if you have the version 12, you're going to want to make sure that you're actually actively using it. You could be on a different installation version. And if you notice some like common bugs might come up is that you're, even though you've installed the right version, you're not using it yet. So you can go ahead and check it like this, say version, and there's 12. That's how I know I'm good to go. Another thing you'll need is the Celo CLI, which is how you can interact with the blockchain just directly from your terminal. So you can go ahead and install that. But again, I already have it. Once you have the prereqs, then you can just go and set up your environment. What this is doing is just making a directory and calling it Celo Truffle, and then I'll change into it to start my project, initialize node. So you have a node project going. And then there's two things I'll be using, HG Wallet Provider, which is something you'll see in the Truffle config in a minute. That's helping you connect to your wallet, and a .env file, which you don't need this, but I like just setting projects up how I would want them to be if I were to push them to GitHub. And in this case, you're going to want to make a .env because it'll store things like your private key. And then you'll hide that with a git ignore so that you can start using, I don't know, some hidden information you're going to need for your projects while not accidentally pushing it to GitHub. So I will go ahead and install those. And I made it that hopefully, if you check it out, you can just run down and start copying and pasting each of these in the same way I am. All right, .env. And then there's some vulnerabilities and stuff. Don't worry about that, just some warnings. And then you're initializing your Truffle project, which will give you the scaffolding for everything you need to start using Truffle. From there, I use this code dot. It just opens things up in VS Code, but open it up in whatever editor you want, however you like best. You'll have a contracts folder, a migrations folder, some node modules, a test package, a configuration file, and then your package.json once you get started. And now the next steps are to actually go ahead and build your dApp. In this case, I have one called hellocelo.sol, and just make it in contracts, hellocelo.sol. And you can just paste it right in there. It's just making a string that says hello Celo. I'll rush through the rest of this because let's see, you want to make your migrations file, which what that does for you is allow you to actually run some commands that will deploy the smart contract in the same way you did from Remix. And in there, you're putting this, you're setting a variable to hello Celo, requiring the smart contract, and then setting some of the deployment configuration. Let's see. All right, so that's about, in this case, you can make a more complicated smart contract if you want, but you don't have to, or we can go ahead and deploy hello Celo. What we'll do is create a new account. You'll need that so that you can use it to deploy your smart contract. This is a Celo CLI command that allows you to do that. Once you have that, it gives you a mnemonic, private key, public key, address, and other things you'll be working with. You want to fund your account, address. This, I don't know if I actually clicked on this yet, but if you didn't have some of this test network funds, you would go to this site, you paste in a public key, you prove you're not a robot. All right, well done. And in a couple seconds, you'll have your funds available. If you want to see it through MetaMask with any account, if you have the private key, you can go ahead and import it. And you'll see now we've got our one Celo, which is what we were looking for. You can run this to set your Celo CLI to the Alpha Horus testnet if it's not already there. Mine's already set up, but basically, Celo CLI. Okay. In my case, it's already set up to this. But if you were to run config get and it's not, you're going to want to run this command to reset it to the Alpha Horus test network or whatever network you're trying to connect with. You could view the account balance through the CLI, but we already verified it on here. Let's see. Make your environment file. Touch is just create a file, and we'll give it our private key. This is what's going to eventually let us know private key is, because you'll need that to know which funds or where the funds are being taken from, and then the git ignore file that I was talking about. And again, you can just paste this right into that file you created. And sorry, I noticed you can just open your terminal in VS Code, and I never really do that, but it makes it so you don't have to switch screens so much. The last thing you do, truffle config. This is all set up for Ethereum type stuff, but we're going to set it up for Celo. And in this case, we want to import that wallet provider and the .m file that'll help you connect to your wallet and find the path for certain information you had. And then let's set it up for Alpha Horus. All you really need to do is go ahead to the networks, find where the networks are. In this case, development, they have one set up for like a local host, but you can set it up for Alpha Horace with this just by specifying the network ID, the 4.0 name. 4.0, if you don't know, is like a remote RPC node, similar to Infura, if you're familiar with that. And then this is where it's looking for the private key that you put in your environment file. So we're almost there. You're just going to want to migrate your smart contracts. It's telling you some information here that it's compiling. And once it's migrated, you can go ahead and deploy them. Some of the information you'll see coming in here, it's deploying to Alpha Horace with the network ID. I'm showing you the transaction, blocks, contract address. And while it's doing that, I'll just quick go back to the guide. Cool, it all worked. Launchpad. Back to the block explorer. We can check out the transaction hash or the contract address. In this case, I'll check out Alpha Horace. Put in the contract address. And again, you can view from here what it is that you just deployed. It's all live, similar to the transactions if you wanted to use that. So I'm sorry, this is a bit more time than I thought it would take. But just to let you know, I do want to get into what Nestor was going to be talking about. But all of these, like I said, have blogs associated with them, which I'll show you through the guide real fast. Build on Celo. If you wanted to do the same thing with not using Truffle, but by using Hardhat, you can just keep going down to Hardhat. You'll see, check out this tutorial. It's a step-by-step guide there. Here's everything you're going to need to get that all set up. A couple other videos for building dApps. And finally, the tool I did want to tell you about, but maybe at the end if we have time, but no rush, Nestor, is Dap Starter. It's actually way simpler to get started with that. Part of the point of showing you this was that when you use Dap Starter, you'll see how much easier it is. But we have a GitHub repo here where it shows you exactly how to get started. Clone the repo, just CD into it, use the right node environment, go ahead, create an account, deploy your contracts, start the front end, and then you're up and running locally. So it's that same routine, just again, hopefully you're familiar enough now with the terms. If you're not, reach out anytime to me. I can help you through it. And then past that, there's just one more tutorial where if you wanted to extend and customize your dApps, this shows you exactly how. Last little, just look at the code. It is done with Hardhat, so you'll see similar things, your contracts, your deployments, a couple other things, your get ignore file, your configuration. And then on the front end, this is getting you started with React, which is using a progressive web app so that you can use it on mobile phones easily, and a bunch of components to get you started. And I'll stop there. Yeah, Nestor. Hopefully you can pick up from there. Sorry, I ran a little over. I'm gonna need to figure out how to fit that all in quicker next time.
Yeah, no worries. It was awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, to pick up, basically now what we're gonna see is how to dissect transactions, because Joe will explain how to create a project, how to use Truffle or Hardhat, but sometimes we need to understand what a transaction is and how can we create transaction and use different libraries and pick the one that we like the most. So we're gonna use Ether.js, contract kit from Celo. So yeah, we're gonna do that now. For that, I'm gonna share my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, cool. So now we're gonna send transactions. And for that, we can go to this link and we can clone this repo. So this repo is gonna be here, Celo lesson transactions, and that repo is gonna be this one. We're going to expand this. And this is a repo where we are going to understand the basic on how transactions are built in Celo. And yeah, pretty much it's a very self-explanatory repo where we are going to use primarily these two files. Well, this file, which is lesson, one thing that I did was adding, a Spanish translation for the lesson. So pretty much you can go with the lessons English, but if you are a Spanish speaker, you can go with the lessons Spanish. So it's going to be the same. Also the README. So the first thing is, if you don't have an account, you can create one account, right? Joe already explained that. So it's going to be very easy. Just run this file and you're going to have in the console, you're going to have one account. Once you have that account, you can use it into .env. So please remember that env is a well-known library, but you need to double check that is in get ignore. So why? Because you don't want to publish your private key into a public repo, right? Because yeah, basically if you publish your private key, anyone can access to your account and transfer funds. So yeah, we're gonna put in the .env, the private key, and the Figment API key if you want to use Figment API. And what do I mean by Figment API? You can go to Figment and create one account using Data Hub for Figment, and you will have your key. So this is going to be your API key, and this is the one that you can copy into your repo. So we're going to have our private key and our Figment API. That's going to be all we need in order to understand this lesson, and we are going to go with lesson underscore English. So basically here is how we're gonna dissect Celo transactions. And first, what we're gonna do is understand and view an transaction in Ethereum, right? Because Celo is an EVM, it's EVM compatible. So first, what we're gonna do, we need to create an instance of Web3. And for that, we need to send the RPC. So in this case, we are gonna use testnet, right? And we can't use the RPC by default of Celo, or we can use the RPC provided by Figment. So we can do the two ways. And then once we have our object of Web3, we can instantiate a contract kit object. Once we have the kit, we're ready to go, but we need to have our account. And what do I mean by have our account? We need to create an instance of an account by passing to the Web3 library our private key. So once we pass the private key, we can get an account, and this account is going to get the private key for the .env that we already use, and we already created our account. Of course, that account needs to have some funds in it in order to create the transactions or send transactions to the blockchain. One topic is that if we are gonna just read, information, it doesn't require any gas, any Celo in this case. But if we are gonna interact and we're gonna change the state of the blockchain, we need to have some funds. So, all right, once we have our account, we're ready to go. And the first thing is we can see an Ethereum transactions. So in these transactions, we are sending to this account, which is a random account, from this account, the account that we already created, using the chain ID. So the chain ID is the ID for every chain. So every chain, it could be Ethereum, Celo, whatever other blockchain has a unique ID. So for AlphaHort is 44787, we could send some data if we are going to interact with one smart contract, and we can send a value. And of course, we need to put the gas price. So in order to see how a transaction looks, we can run just node lesson. So this is how an Ethereum transaction looks. So we have the hash, we have the raw transaction that is going to have all pretty much what the explorers do is like get the raw transaction and dissect it and put all the values, all the interactions that it's doing either with one external order account or with one smart contract. And yeah, this is the raw transaction is basically all that is happening in that transactions. And the V, R, and S is used for the signature. And we're going to have also the transactions hash that we are going to use next. Once we already see one Ethereum transactions, we can compare that Ethereum transactions with one transaction in the Celo blockchain. We can see what is the difference. So we can see here that in the Ethereum transaction, we have, as I mentioned, message hash, VRS, raw transaction, and transaction hash. But in Celo, we have also nonce, gas price, gas to value input. But we can see these three attributes, these other attributes. And this is important. Why? Because the fee currency is the one that is going to say, you know, in Celo, we can pay the transactions in other coin called in stable coins approved by the blockchain. So what I mean by that, in Celo, in Ethereum, when we interact, let's say we want to transfer one, I don't know, 10 DAI, for instance. In Ethereum, you need to have, for transfer 10 DAI, you need to have some Ether in order to pay for the gas. In Celo, you can transfer 10 Celo dollars and also pay the transaction fee with that Celo stablecoin. So that's important in the way and how can we onboard more people, right? Because in that view, it's not complex at all to say, you know, you have $10, you're gonna pay 1 cent or less for the transaction fee, and that's it. So this is how we can see that part. This is the fee currency. So this is the address of the smart contract that handle the Celo dollar stablecoin. All right, so now we already dissected one Celo transaction. And what we're gonna do now is to send a Celo transaction. So we're gonna send to this public, to this address from the account that we're using. We're gonna still using the same Alpha Horse chain ID. In this case, we are not gonna send any data because that's gonna be an external on an account, and we're gonna send some Celo. You can ask yourself, you know, why it says Ether if we are interacting with Celo. So the reason is that the kit is a wrap of different other libraries like Web3, JS, and these use Ether. So what we mean by using contract kit, when we see 0.1 ETH, it means 0.1 Celo, right? Because we are using contract kit. So we're defining here the amount that we're gonna send is 0.1 Celo. And yeah, that's pretty much the transactions. All these other fields are optional. And we're gonna see that later. Then once we have the transactions, we use contract kit in order to send the transaction to the blockchain. So we are gonna get a transaction receipt and we need to wait for it. And then what the receipt is gonna get is a hash. And what is a hash? Is the proof, is a unique number that proves the transaction that was minted by all the nodes in the blockchain. So let's run this. Yeah, we're gonna do the same. No lesson. Yes. So right now is getting the transaction, is sending that to the blockchain. Then we are gonna get the hash of it. And as you can see in the console log, I'm just elaborating an URL that is gonna be the block scout. So in the block scout, we can see here that this transaction was for 0.1 Celo, and it was to the transaction that we already mentioned it, 0x9. Yeah, that's pretty much the proof of the transaction. Now, let's do more examples. Now, what we're gonna do is to get the balances of the stablecoins. As I mentioned before, I already explained that in Celo, we can pay the transactions in stablecoin, the fee of the transaction in stablecoins. And now, of course, using ContractKit, we can get the balance of different accounts. We can get the balance of these stablecoins as also as Celo. So we can use the kit, and in order to get the balance of the stablecoins, we can use kit contracts and get stable token. Also, kit contracts get gold token. And also you can ask yourself, okay, why it says gold and not, I don't know, Celo. So what happened is that at the moment that this library was written, the name of Celo was Celo Gold. So that's the reason why it says get Celo token. So this function is gonna get the address of those smart contracts for the Celo, for the Celo stable coin. So once we have the address, we can get the balance of a specific address. And then what we're gonna do is just to print the balance of those, either the Celo, both the Celo and Celo USD. So for this account, we have 277 Celos and 469 Celo dollars. And for sure, if you don't believe me, we can prove that. Yeah, this is the address. So yeah, we can see the Celo and the Celo stable tokens. Also, we already know how to get the balances, and we can send a transaction to Celo, but we are gonna, let's say that you are curious about, okay, now I understand how to send a Celo transactions, but I now want to use that very unique Celo feature that is pay the fee in a stable coin. So for that, we can use always the contract kit. We are gonna get the address of the Celo stable coins in stable tokens, and then we can do a transfer, right? So it's gonna say from this account to an address account, and we are gonna specify in the fee currency the address of this stable token that we want to use. So basically with this, we're saying, please Celo send a transaction using as a fee currency this stable token. All right. So this is going to be the transaction. This is going to be transfer. Also, always we need to do an await because it's sent to the blockchain. we need to wait for the receipt. And then once we have the receipt, we are gonna get a hash. Once we have the hash, we can get the new balances just to verify that the transaction proceed accordingly. And we can print that in the console log. All right, so it's sending that to the blockchain, and we have the first, let's say, the CUSD transaction. All right, so in this one, we see a transaction that is from address to this address. And the important thing is we pay the gas, the transaction fees in CUSD. So to remember, this is something that is not possible in other chain like Ethereum. This is possible, but this is possible in Celo. All right, we already sent that. And now you can, I don't know, be curious of, okay, I already use ContractKit, I understand, but I don't know, my project is using Ether.js, how can I do it? Okay, so for that, we can also use Ether.js, and the way that we're gonna do that is first, okay, we need to get a provider, and we are gonna create the instance of the provider by passing the RPC of the specific blockchain, which is this case is also for Celo. And then once the provider is ready, I mean, the connection is ready, we can send together with the provider the private key. Again, the private key is the one that we already put into our .env file. Okay, so now we have our wallet, and then we can use that object in order to send transaction. And in this case, we are going to send to an address, which was one address that we defined it before, and we're going to pass 0.1 Celo. Once we have that, we're going to wait again because that needs to be minted in the blockchain. And again, we're going to get the receipt, and then the receipt, as I mentioned before, it's going to have always a transaction hash, which is the proof of the transaction. And we can use that in order to verify what we did in our transaction. All right, we ready? And this is the transaction. This is the transaction, which value was 0.1 Celo. And yeah, basically that was the workshop, this part of the workshop about understanding Celo transaction and how it works. Now, let's say that we want to understand this part, to put that into our web page. So one thing that we could do is go to the so what I did here is we have this folder for web page. So in web page, we need to install the packages, and we have the ABI of a simple ERC20 that Joe explained it before with the Joe token. And we're gonna have one index HTML, a simple one just to connect with the extension, in this case MetaMask. And we are gonna read from the blockchain the values of one specific address. Yeah, we're gonna just run yarn dev in order to run this website. We can use this. We're gonna connect with the extension. We are gonna connect with this account, and we can send a transaction. And that's a simple way in how we can interact with a website. But of course, if you want a more advanced part, is the part that Joe already explained with the Dap Starter repo. So yeah, I hope it was clear in order how to understand, how to interact with Celo transactions. Joe?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nestor. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed it so far. While you're talking, Nestor, I realized one thing I should have done real quick. Hopefully not take too much time from people, but just wanted to share. I just kept saying, like, use Dap Starter. And just to show you, is my screen sharing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, you can find it back in the launch pad. It'll take you to this repo where you can get started. But one thing to click on would be we have it live on Netlify. So you could just check out what it even means to like get started with Dap Starter. Why would you want to use it? Because as you've seen, there's quite a bit of backend stuff you can do. I was doing a little bit more with the tools. Nestor was showing the in-depth look at like how to mess with transactions. And then you got to keep all that in mind while putting the front end together in a way that people are going to be able to use. And the whole point of recommending Dap Starter is that it's at least a kickstart to help you go ahead and do that for yourself. When you load it up, you'll see there's an account info where you can check out the different currencies, like similar to what Nestor was showing. And then there's also the storage and greeter contracts, like we had gone over from Remix. You can connect or disconnect your wallet. So hopefully that helps you out. One question from the comments was it only uses React. And it's true, it does. We do want to keep building it over time to make it easier for maybe simple JavaScript, or if you have a different framework in mind. And what would be cool if you're interested is going ahead to Dap Starter. And if you run into that or any other problem, just go ahead to the issues, let us know, JavaScript, and then submit the new issue, and that'll let us know what it is we can go ahead and build to make this easier. We're actively looking for support and all to make this as simple as possible for people to get up and running. So that's all. Just wanted to share that quick. Hopefully it helps give you a good visual of what it is you'd be building in the first place. And again, awesome presentation, Nestor. And I guess we're done at this point.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Joe and Nessa, for sharing. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the session. I hope you have all the resources you need. And if you need help at any point, our mentors, Joe, Nessa, and Brandy from Celo will be available for consultation. So you can just book them when it starts on 3rd of June. Yeah. Happy hacking. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.